Here's why Aegon too felt betrayed by Alicent during his coronation pressure. What if I told you that one of the most pivotal moments in House of the Dragon, the coronation of Aegon II Targaryen, was not just about power, politics, or the Iron Throne, but also about a deep and personal sense of betrayal between a son and his mother? Because while Aegon was being thrust onto the throne in the shadow of his father's death, he wasn't just stepping into the role of king. He was being forced into it, manipulated, cornered, and, in his eyes, betrayed by none other than Alicent Hightower, the very person who was supposed to protect him. This is the story of why Aegon too felt betrayed by Alicent during the crushing pressure of his coronation. And as we peel back the layers of politics, family, and raw emotion, you'll see how this moment shaped the bloody war known as the Dance of the Dragons. So grab your seat, because once we unravel this, you'll never look at Aegon, or Alicent, the same way again. When we think of Aegon II Targaryen, many of us picture a reluctant, unstable ruler, a young man shoved into the spotlight with little preparation and even less desire. Unlike his sister Rhaenyra, who had been groomed from childhood to succeed King Viserys, Aegon never saw himself as king. He preferred the pleasures of the tavern, the shadows of brothels, and the anonymity of the streets. Aegon was, in truth, the quintessential second son, even though he was the firstborn male of Viserys. He lacked the qualities of a leader, the hunger for power, and most importantly, the respect of the court. And yet, despite his flaws, he was pushed toward the throne, not because he wanted it, but because the people around him, especially his mother Alicent, demanded it. But let's be clear, Aegon did not see this as a blessing. He saw it as betrayal. To understand his feelings, we need to go back to the final days of King Viserys I Targaryen. His death triggered a succession crisis unlike anything Westeros had seen before. Rhaenyra had been named heir years earlier, sworn into by lords across the realm. Yet, the moment Viserys breathed his last, the Hightowers sprang into action. Otto Hightower, the calculating hand, wasted no time. The so-called Green Council convened in secret, plotting to install Aegon on the throne before word of Viserys's death could even reach Dragonstone. And this is where Alicent steps in. To her, this was not simply a power grab. She had convinced herself it was her duty, a sacred act of protection. In her mind, Rhaenyra's ascension meant death for Aegon and all her children, because the realm would never accept Rhaenyra's claim without bloodshed. Alicent's heart may have been a mix of fear, love, and ambition, but in Aegon's eyes, it looked very different. To him, this was his mother throwing him into a pit of fire. Imagine being Aegon in this moment. You've lived your whole life knowing your sister is heir. You've been told, either explicitly or through cold reality, that you are not fit for kingship. You've indulged in pleasures, avoided responsibility, and hidden from the burden of leadership. And suddenly, overnight, you are told not only that your father is dead, but that you must wear a crown, hold a scepter, and sit the most dangerous chair in Westeros. Of course Aegon resisted. Of course he doubted himself. Of course he felt betrayed by the woman who insisted it was his destiny. Aegon is famously quoted in Fire and Blood as being terrified, confused, and even angry about the rush to coronate him. He asked, bitterly, why anyone would want him as king when Rhaenyra was already chosen. He even tried to hide, dragging his feet while his supporters scoured the city to bring him to the dragon pit. This hesitation was not cowardice, it was the raw emotion of someone who never wanted power in the first place. And here lies the betrayal. Alicent claimed to love him, yet she ignored his fear. She saw his protests as weakness, not humanity. In forcing the crown upon him, Aegon felt abandoned, used as a pawn in her greater game with Otto, the council, and ultimately, against Rhaenyra. Now, let's dive deeper into why this stung so much for Aegon. For years, Aegon had lived under the shadow of disappointment. His father, King Viserys, showed him little warmth, preferring instead to nurture his daughter Rhaenyra. In many ways, Aegon likely resented this, feeling unloved, overlooked, and unnecessary. His mother, Alicent, was the one person he believed was firmly on his side. Yet when the time came, she too seemed to value ambition over him. Instead of protecting him from a role he didn't want, she pushed him into it. And the coronation itself was the breaking point. Picture the scene. The dragon pit filled with lords, knights, and common folk. The hush of anticipation before Sir Criston Cole placed the crown of Aegon the Conqueror upon his head. The roar of the crowd as the trumpets blared. The sheer weight of history pressing down on his shoulders. From the outside, it was triumphant, a moment of glory, of unity, of power. But from Aegon's perspective, it was suffocating. Every cheer was a reminder that he could not go back. Every sword raised in salute was a chain binding him to a future he feared. And every glance at his mother only deepened the wound. She wasn't saving him. She was sacrificing him. It's no wonder Aegon hardened over time, growing resentful and bitter. He became a king consumed by paranoia, cruelty, and insecurity. And while some of that was in his nature, much of it was born from this very betrayal. Let's also talk about Otto Hightower's role, because this only fueled the divide between Aegon and Alicent. Otto treated Aegon as a pawn from the beginning. For Otto, Aegon wasn't a son or a boy, he was a weapon, the key to securing Hightower influence and destroying Rhaenyra's claim. Otto's cold strategy clashed with Alicent's maternal instincts, but when she went along with it, Aegon felt there was no one left in his corner. This is what makes the betrayal so layered. Aegon wasn't only betrayed by Alicent's actions, but also by her silence. She didn't shield him from Otto. She didn't fight for his voice to be heard. Instead, she nodded along, trying to balance her love for her son with her belief in her family's survival. But to Aegon, it was simple. She chose politics over him. This brings us to the heart of the tragedy. The coronation was not just the beginning of Aegon's reign. It was the beginning of a war that would tear apart Westeros, slaughter dragons, and devastate families. Yet, for Aegon, it was also the beginning of a personal war, with himself, with his mother, and with the very legacy he was forced to inherit. Every cruel decision Aegon made, every paranoid lashing out, every drunken spiral, it all traces back to the moment he realized he had no choice. His crown was not a gift. It was a shackle. And who fastened that shackle? Alicent Hightower. Now, some of you may ask, did Alicent truly betray him? After all, wasn't she just trying to protect her son from Rhaenyra's wrath? Didn't she genuinely believe he'd be safer as king than as a potential usurper? Yes, from her point of view, Alicent was acting out of love. She had been poisoned by years of whispers, by Otto's ambitions, by her own fear of what Rhaenyra might do once she held power. In Alicent's mind, the only way to keep Aegon alive was to put him on the throne. But here's the cruel irony, her plan to save him was the very thing that doomed him. And Aegon knew it. Deep down, he saw her love as conditional. Not the unconditional love of a mother, but the suffocating love of a queen who valued legacy over family. That is why the betrayal cut so deep. We can even trace Aegon's later actions to this wound. As king, he grew increasingly distant from his mother, resenting her influence. He turned to cruelty and indulgence, lashing out at those around him. He distrusted his advisors, even those who had helped crown him. Aegon never wanted to be king, but being forced into it by his mother left him both broken and dangerous. And here's the tragic twist.